All right. And I think that that this has been popped into the chat for you. So I used just a little Google Doc for us today to follow along with, to tell you a little bit about APH. I might not get down to every detail about the census, Missy, but just know that we're always available to connect with if there was something further that you wanted. So I'm just going to jump right into a little bit of an introduction about the American Printing House for the Blind, or APH. Rebecca, I'm thinking in particular, this may be newer for you. So essentially, the American Printing House for the Blind has a mission to break down the barriers standing in the way of opportunities for children and adults who are blind and visually impaired, creating tools and services that foster independence, stimulate discovery, and advance accomplishment. I've shared with you the link to the American Printing House, so you can go right to their website. A brief little walkthrough just of how to access their website. They have drop-down menus, and they discuss things like life with vision loss. And under there, you could learn about either a recent diagnosis, research about kids with vision loss or adults with vision loss, or life at work if you are someone who is blind or visually impaired. Educational resources. I'll be talking more about this as we go on, but things like the core curriculum, expanded core curriculum, physical education, multiple disabilities, accessible textbooks, tactile literacy tools. And we're really excited to kick things off with dipping our toe in the water, like learning about tactile literacy. Also, their outreach services. Continue on there, and then they have accessibility solutions. APH has really become a place where they are helping to teach about providing access for students, children, infants, toddlers, adults, people in the workplace, college, for access. They have resources. We'll talk about a few of these that really will impact you and give you some additional resources as we keep going. They have a team about research and development, particularly on this pull down menu, product development. APH is always wanting to hear from vision professionals, families, those serving infants and toddlers about any learning tools that perhaps APH doesn't have that, people think would benefit our children who are blind and visually impaired, or adults for that matter. So they are always interested in product development and hearing from you about your ideas. That often leads to a new APH product. There's also a button that says Louie. This is where you would search for accessible textbooks in Braille, large print, audio. And then there's a button for catalogs. You can request a catalog from APH at any time, but also you can use their digital catalog. You can shop right on their site, not for our products that we loan in the state, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And then there's some contact information as well. So I just wanted to make sure that you had the links to the APH website, and I'll tell you a little bit more about them. But even better, I'm going to have APH tell a little bit about themselves.
This is an amazing place because we get to create products that really make a difference in people's lives.
There really is no other place like APH. This is technology that helps people, they're blind and visually impaired students all over the United States. They're their teachers and other educators. And to every one of those people, the products we produce are integral to their success.
The American Printing House for the Blind is the world's largest nonprofit company providing educational, workplace, and independent living products for people who are blind and visually impaired. With a mission of promoting the independence of our nation's blind citizens, APH has been transforming lives since 1858. APH was soon nationally recognized to meet the strong need for tactile school books and literature for students and adults. In 1879, the United States Congress passed the act to promote the education of the blind. Today, 70% of our funding comes through this federal act. Under the act, more than 60,000 blind and visually impaired students and adults working at less than college level are registered across the U.S. and its territories. The act requires each state to have ex officio trustees who administer the funds and who advise APH about the creation of new products to benefit these students. The remaining 30% of our funding is derived from product sales, contract work, and the generous donors who support the independence of blind people. Our facility in Louisville, Kentucky encompasses over 280,000 square feet and is home to an extensive manufacturing plant, which includes digital printing presses, computerized braille embossers, a book bindery, digital talking book duplication, and digital recording studios.
Ruby, there's some things a man just can't keep taking responsibility for.
APH researches, designs, and manufactures hundreds of products in these categories: braille, low vision, early childhood, emergent literacy, multiple disabilities, tests and assessments, tactile graphics, adult life, technology, core curriculum, science, technology, engineering and math, and cortical visual impairment.
Window. X-Men equals 9 is the second word.
Our educational kits, curricula, and textbooks are designed so that students will have intentional learning experiences that engage their senses, often including their functional vision.
My name is Mike Burke. I'm working on what we call a clicker press, and it's just mashing little circles out of these 9-inch pads. They go into a kit that we make for visually impaired and blind kids.
Products offered by APH are developed in-house or in collaboration with those in the field of blindness. We have over 300 employees dedicated to the design, manufacture, and distribution of our accessible products. APH educational, tutorial, and utility software provides interactive learning experiences using braille, large print, and synthetic speech output. While hard copy braille remains the standard for most blind readers, APH also offers electronic braille devices.
My name is Larry Scootcon. I'm the Technology Products Manager at APH. This device here is an Android smartphone. Instead of a touch screen, you've actually got a braille screen. Many people consider that blind people are using less braille, but braille is actually more important than ever, especially in this electronic age.
I'm Keith Creasy. I'm a senior programmer at APH. I'm currently involved in a really big project to revolutionize the way we produce Braille. Braille is very expensive to produce. We're working on new software to help produce those books much less expensively and much more quickly.
APH products are designed to give students an equal opportunity in the classroom and adults more opportunity in the workplace and day-to-day living.
Copyright symbol 1983, Camp Cobblestone Publishing. My name is Vicki Pagan. Our sole purpose is to read books, test publications that are written in Braille, and we check them for different types of errors. I read aloud, and Tanya follows along in the print.
APH also offers many services that support our products, including the Louis database of accessible materials, the MC Miguel and Barr research libraries, and nationwide product training. It is also home to the Museum of the American Printing House for the Blind, which brings alive the history of the education of blind people, and the field's Hall of Fame for leaders and legends of the blindness field. The American Printing House for the Blind is dedicated to making an independent life possible for people who are blind and visually impaired.
I feel so good because we're doing things that matter to people, that make real differences in their lives.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at APH for the Blind. You can also visit us on the web at www.aph.org or come in for a tour. We're open to the public.
Okay, I will screen share again in just a moment. I figured no one would say things better than hearing and learning about APH from those who are at APH. Any questions about what you just observed in the video or learned or heard?
There's nothing in the chat right now, Dawn, but hopefully somebody will speak out if they do have a question.
Terrific. So you basically heard that ex officio trustees, or they call us EOTs, we manage that fiscal funding that comes from the federal government through Congress. So the biggest thing is that this is different than like state funding for like the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA funding for our students who are blind and visually impaired. And so this is a completely separate set of funds that I manage our statewide and private homeschool accounts. And so I am your EOT for that statewide account, which serves birth through 21. So I am going to just click on this button called APH presentation for you. So federal quota is essentially the registration of those students that you just heard about. And in Wisconsin, the largest account I manage is birth through 21. So I am a DPI employee, and we serve students aged 3 through 21 in our outreach programming and through the Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. We are a division of DPI, or the Department of Public Instruction. But with federal quota, I also serve birth to 3 because our students birth through 21 are registered in the federal quota accounts that I manage. So I've given a link for you that you'll have here as well that will explain to you who is eligible for federal quota. What does that mean? So the Act to Promote the Blind through Congress requires a few things. And I'm just going to scroll for you. The 2 biggest things for you to know is that a student must MDB, meet the definition of blindness, which is a central visual acuity of 2200 or less using a Snellen chart or an acuity determined in Snellen equivalents, in the better eye with the best correction, or a peripheral field of vision no greater than 20 degrees. So MDB, or FDB, which is functions at the definition of blindness. So when visual function meets the definition of blindness, this is determined by an eye care specialist, ophthalmologist, optometrist, or other medical doctor, such as a neurologist. So the federal quota, for those of you who may be TVIs, our state eligibility is different from this. So the state eligibility calls for information from an optometrist or ophthalmologist. APH allows the neurologist to be part of getting to this functions of definition of blindness, or FDB. And largely the reason is that students in this category often manifest visual characteristics that are unique to neurological or cortical or cerebral visual impairment. Cortical or cerebral visual impairment are called CVI. Example may also be brain injury or dysfunction. So the biggest thing for you to know is MDB and FDB are the categories that students, in order to be determined to be eligible, they must meet the categories there. So additionally, students to be found eligible must be enrolled formally in some type of an organized public or private or nonprofit educational program of less than a college level. And we're talking birth through 21 years. So they would be a school-aged student. They would be considered a school-aged student or an infant and toddler. But school-age students, including the infants and toddlers and preschool students, must be enrolled with their registering school everyone who you're going to register should be enrolled with their school on the first Monday in January, whatever that Monday ends up being on the calendar. This is important for you to understand as a TVI or someone who is conducting the federal quota. If you have a student who is referred to you and they formally become a student who is found to be blind and visually impaired in Wisconsin in your district, but not until like February 15th, they will not be registered in this year's quota. They will wait until the next year. So the biggest thing there is to know that at that point, the responsibility falls on your local education agency to support anything in the IEP for that student at that time. So that hopefully is helpful. We get that question quite a bit. And then, so a little bit, there is an adult student registry in some states. Wisconsin currently does not have this, but so that would be separate from anything that I manage. Infants, though, eligible infants, birth to 3, can be registered if they are enrolled in a formally organized or regularly scheduled education program, training program, and have a written plan like an individualized family service plan or IFSP. And they can be registered actually with a note from their pediatrician or any eye care specialist. And that note from that doctor or doctors can actually state that they meet the definition of blindness, because finding actual acuity for an infant or toddler can be very difficult. Parent permissions are also required for all students, not only in this birth to 3 age group, but the 3 to 21 age group as well. So our school age students eligible are preschool through high school. They as well will have usually an individualized education plan or IEP under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And again, parent permissions for all students through their 18th birthday. If they're their own guardian, but they're still a school age student, they would have their own rights then. So homebound students can also be registered if they are enrolled in a formally organized and regularly scheduled program as well, but they would also probably have a written education plan. It's required. And again, parent permissions. Homeschooled students, again, as long as they are having a written education plan and the requirements still for parent permission. So these are really the categories. And as you could see, anything you take away from this would probably be that I serve birth to 21 in our largest statewide accounts. I have a smaller homebound and school, private and homeschooled student account as well. And this link that you'll have again brings you back, and I scrolled a little for you, to understanding what MDB or meets the definition of blindness and FDB or functions at the definition of blindness, what those two things mean. So that's kind of a lot to start out, but any questions about those basic definitions?
I'm not seeing anything in. Oh, we do have one done.
Okay.
Where do progressive conditions fall? Who are not yet labeled as the functional disability or meets the disability blindness?
Thank you for bringing that up. So if a student, if you're working with a student, let's say they have a degenerative eye condition, it will be progressive, they may get worse over time, but currently they wouldn't fall in the MDB or FDB categories. They would not be eligible to be registered for federal quota. So in Wisconsin, we do know that we have, since I've been EOT, there have been needs of students in these other categories. The one thing that an EOT is able to do They can make a decision based on the funding that they have each year. And we in Wisconsin had made a decision that for students who may have a progressive condition, but they are not on the federal quota, if we have available Braille writers and the student does not meet federal quota eligibility criteria, but they may be learning Braille with a teacher of the blind and visually impaired. If we have Braille writers available in our resource center that have already been utilized by an eligible student and perhaps sent back, we will loan those to students who are not yet on the federal quota registry. But in terms of ordering, what does that mean? That means your LEA is responsible for everything in that student's individualized education plan. So does that help? And any questions that are follow-ups to that then?
She said, yes, that answers my question.
Awesome.
Yes. It was very well put.
So now currently, federal quota is ongoing right now. The LEAs or local education agencies or birth to 3 county representatives, they had to designate they had to choose a designee to submit this year's federal quota. So we're in the process right now. And it's ongoing. What happens then after the LEA or county and birth to 3 submit who will fill out the quota, then you will receive emails along with your directors or LEAs and with all of the instructions for how to submit the quota, including the current list of students that are in your district. So it's a pretty big job with lots of communication. Our federal quota census coordinator does email back and forth. Sometimes I will work with that person too. So we've got some new staff that are starting. And so we're kind of in a building program right now, but any questions, if you have been selected as a designee, you will be receiving emails about the next steps. So, but I did want to talk about is number 2 here. What is Wisconsin's federal quota process for orders, and explaining a few things about some of the materials. So we have what we call consumables versus a capital loan equipment. So consumables are items that would be something like Braille paper or a slate and stylus, or an item like an abacus or Braille textbook or a light box. These things are considered consumable items. They would not have to be returned after they're loaned. We always call them loans. And here's why. Most of the time, a consumable like Braille paper, a student and a teacher would use up a box of Braille paper. You're not sending anything back to us. But we do have a resource center with shelves. Therefore, if an item was loaned that was a consumable item, like an abacus or a slate and stylus, even sometimes Braille folders that are used to hold Braille paper that are in good condition, if some things like that could be sent back to us, we can also share out for that question about items that for students who may not be registered yet. If we have something on our shelf that had already been used and sent back, we can loan those again. And then we could also loan those to students who are not yet formally registered. So consumables have a form. I'm going to walk through the forms with you, but I just kind of wanted to explain what a consumable is considered to be. And there are thousands of items that APH has available. So then capital loan equipment would be things like assistive technology devices, high cost items that APH offers, like Braille displays or Braille embossers, even the Braille writers. We do allow a student to loan indefinitely a Braille writer, sometimes even 2, if the student needs one for home and one for school. We do not loan a Braille writer to a teacher of the blind and visually impaired. That's the responsibility of the supervisor or the whoever is the boss of that TVI essentially would ensure that their staff have what they need, because this fund is only for eligible and qualifying students. So the capital loan, though, is important because each eligible student currently receives approximately $400 each year. So one item like a Braille note taker through APH could cost $2,000. A Braille embosser could cost $3,000. And so we loan those high cost items to districts and TVIs and students to try. Most of the AT or assistive tech items can be loaned for a semester, and Braille embossers can be loaned for a year. This allows that district or LEA to determine whether it's a good fit, if it's the right tool, and then the LEA can make the purchase for that item. So it's kind of misunderstood sometimes that everything for all children who are blind is just sort of free and they get to keep everything. And we really call everything a loan. Because especially if an item has been used and it is able to be used again, when it is sent back, other students either on your caseload or someone else's caseload could use those items again. When I first started, we requested that anything not being used in the state was sent back to us, and the teachers of the blind and visually impaired went to town, and we received approximately $200,000 worth of really good working consumables and other products, Braille writers, that we could put back on our shelves to be able to loan again. So I'm going to just give you a click here on a link that you have access to, and it's to our Accessible Educational Materials Center, or AIM Center.
Don,
yeah,
we do have a question.
You got it.
For students who are not registered, what paperwork do we need to request consumables that have been returned?
So, good question. And what you would do, it's the perfect timing for me to have the AIM webpage up. So based on your question, I scrolled down to the bottom of our AIM webpage. If you have questions, because you're right, you wouldn't submit a consumable form because you wouldn't have an eligible student. You would email our AIM inbox, and we actually, we used to have just one person, our AIM coordinator from a few years ago. Her email was here, and by having one person in charge of everything, it kind of can cause a little bit of a backup from time to time. So what we've done is we've created an AIM inbox. Many people from our team are responsible for helping with the inbox. And this is where you would pose a question like that, and you would learn whether or not something was available and on the shelves that could be loaned to a student who wasn't yet registered. Does that help?
She said, thank you. I didn't realize we could borrow things for our students who didn't qualify.
Definitely. And the biggest decision for me was really surrounding Braille, because as a TVI myself, I know that students who could have a degenerative or progressive condition, should and probably are already learning Braille as well. So we did our best job to try to build up our Braille writers that are available for that group of students as well. I can't say we always will have Braillers, but we do our best once they come in and have been used already. What I can't do is allocate any new funding to purchase a Brailler for someone who is not on the quota registry yet. But if one comes back in from, let's say, a student graduates or moves away, and that TVI sends us that Brailler, then that's on the shelves and can be loaned again. So, good question. On our Accessible Educational Materials Center page, you will see multiple things, and some directly apply to APH, but we have a central depository of Braille and large print textbooks and other educational aids, many of them APH. the K-12 textbooks that have been purchased, let's say through quota funds, because we can use our quota funds to assist a district if they have a textbook that they want to be brailled or put into large print. There's some nice digital large print now through APH as well. So an important distinction here is that a district should really plan, what I like to say, a year in advance about textbook adoption, because it could take a Braille company or APH for that matter. You saw in the video that they were transcribing Braille and proofreading Braille for textbooks. It could take them a year to Braille a brand new textbook that had never been brailled before in, let's say, math or science. And so a district is going to need a year to ensure that that textbook is on the desk for that student at the same time their peers who are sighted are receiving access to the print. So just wanted to kind of put that out there, that textbooks are part of everything. And then we do textbook research, but that's through our AIM Center, a little separate from APH. What I did want to point out for you, though, on this page is several forms. One is the catalog online in case just so you can always find it for APH. And one is the link to the consumables and loan request form. This past year, we made it digital, not me, but Amy Snow, our assistive technology specialist, worked very hard, and several on our team to help proof it. And so we have a digital process now for requests for the consumables and those capital loan equipment forms. So things like braillers, and then some of the assistive technology devices I told you about, like Braille note takers or embossers. So I think that's the biggest thing on this page that I wanted you just to have access to, where to go for the order. So now you've sort of learned what's a consumable, what is capital loan equipment, and how do I request those things for my students who are on quota. And actually, if you have a student who's not registered yet, you've learned that you can email us to see if something is available on our shelves. So I'm going to pause for a minute and take a drink of water. So if you have a question right now, just let me know.
Missy wants to warn everybody that the high school geometry books takes even longer.
Yes. I have heard some textbooks that could take up to a year and a half. Yep. Especially if it's a post-secondary, like students who are in like a college options. Not all of our textbook vendors will take on post-secondary math or science. And many high school students now have the option to take a class linked with like a technical college or one of our 2 or 4 year UW programs as well. So
Trisha has a question.
Yep.
When can we request? Do we have to wait until the new forms are processed from the district?
Right. We do wait. Yep, we do wait. So there will be lag time, definitely. And so actually we're working on updating all of our policies. So we will be putting the policies into our weekly update. We just hired a new consultant for AIM, Accessible Educational Materials Consultant. She is now my EOT assistant. And I'm sorry I couldn't have her with me today. She's not working today, but if you knew Marilyn Connolly in the past, she has that role. So we are working on some policies to put forth more for you, even on our AIM page, to explain some of those timelines a little deeper, because we really haven't had some things fully written down. So, but anytime that you have a question and you email the AIM inbox, we'll also let you know. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit about some core curriculum products that APH has. I've given you a link here where you can go to explore the core curriculum items that are available. And what do I mean by core curriculum? So educators define the core curriculum as basic knowledge and skills and the content that all students need to learn to be ready walking out the door as a high school graduate. So foundational learning related to academic subjects. And so APH has products arranged according to core curriculum that can help a teacher of the blind or someone who is working with a student who's blind to understand what products are available to help support these subject areas. So they have English language arts, foreign language, mathematics, science and health, social studies, history, geography, economics, fine arts, business and vocational education, and physical education. So an example for, let's just say, foreign language. So many foreign language textbooks are offered by APH in large print and Braille. When I showed you their website and there was a button that said Louis, that is their searchable database. So let me just give an example. Let's say you have a 10th grade student. They are going to be taking Spanish, and perhaps the district either does or does not have a textbook in mind yet. You can use that Louis database to search for the textbook to see if APH has produced it. If APH has produced it and the student that you have is formally registered on the federal quota, then that textbook would be loaned and your district would not have a cost, which is pretty important. So we're actually going to be working quite a bit more on assisting teachers to learn to use the Louis database. But if you're interested in that, you could email our AIM inbox and ask for any training materials on the Louis database, because we've got a lot of videos from APH already on how to search for yourself to find what is available. Other items like in mathematics, for example, there are tools like math software, measuring devices, things like accessible protractors and math games. For example, social studies, geography, we have large print maps and tactile globes. In most of these areas, also textbooks that have been created for districts through the accessible textbook department at APH. So I'm going to just click for you to see the landing page that you'll be able to bookmark for if you would like to, that will take you through the areas that I just talked about for core curriculum. And they will, like, for example, here it says science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM. And it will give you an example of a few of the probably the top products that APH has in this area. You can also use either a catalog that you've ordered or the digital catalog to also look for items to support your students. So that link you have, and I could pause there because that was also a lot if anyone had any questions.
We have one question about one of Trisha's district's Braille books from a student who has graduated. Would you take those books?
So yes, we do. We're currently looking at some policies based on textbooks that a district may have ordered that they purchased on their own that is not an APH product. Many districts choose to send us those books back to keep on our shelves. But as we know, one textbook in, let's say, math or science could cost as much as $50,000. So the district really has to make that determination. But in terms of the APH textbooks, yes, we would love those back. They would be considered a consumable. So let's say you've got a Braille reading student who is a scrubber. We would say maybe they are a heavy reader and they might push down some of the dots of the Braille. If you determine that some of the book is damaged, then we probably would consider it just a consumable and we wouldn't want it back. But if there is a textbook that especially was an APH textbook, when that comes back on our shelves, we keep a registry of those books. And if any teacher in the state is requesting that textbook through our research process, then we would be able to loan that to an eligible student. And that student would be able to use the book, and we wouldn't have to put in a quota order for it from APH. So definitely, yes, the end of the year, the end of the school year and summer is very busy for us in Janesville at the Resource Center. We are getting lots of books back. And I can remember as a TVI sitting and crying as I watched all of the regular ed teachers walk out the building because I was sitting with hundreds of volumes of Braille books, packing them up and organizing them to send them back to Janesville myself. So good question.
Tricia says, thank you.
Absolutely.
I assume we're only accepting textbooks that are in UEB currently?
We do have some textbooks available still on the shelves that are the old English Braille. A district makes the determination on that, Dave. But yes, in Wisconsin, we adopted the Unified English Braille, or UEB, code in 2016. As soon as that happened, the previous outreach director ensured that any research we provided was only for a district to purchase UEB. Or our research through our center and outreach team was for UEB. APH Accessible Textbook Department will only create textbooks in UEB for new textbooks. However, the tricky thing here, and Dave, you bring a good question. If a textbook had been created, let's say in 2014, in eBay, or English Braille Authority in America, the old Braille code, APH would not recreate that book if it's older than 5 years in UEB. And many textbook vendors in Braille will also not take a book that had already been created if it's an older version, especially, and they will not create that into UEB. So there are still times when a district may find themselves using an older Braille version of a textbook, but because Wisconsin's a local control state, we don't tell a district what they have or have to do or don't have to do. So it really at that point becomes an IEP team decision that the teacher of the blind would work with their LEA, the student and the family and the team, if they had to make decisions about textbooks in that way. So does that help, Dave, with your question?
Yes, I did. It does.
Terrific. Thank you. All right, I'm going to talk a little now about the expanded core curriculum. Some of you may be familiar with the ECC, some of you may not. So all students birth through 21 years who are blind and visually impaired must be taught within the expanded core curriculum, or ECC. That requires 9 additional areas of learning. So experiences and concepts casually and incidentally learned by sighted students must be systematically and sequentially taught to the visually impaired students. So I've given you a link to that I have liked in the past for the Texas School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. It has a printable flyer if you want to share with families or others. That's part of the reason I like this one, but it explains all the areas. So the 9 areas that students who are blind and visually impaired must be taught are assistive technology, career education, compensatory skills, independent living skills, orientation and mobility, recreation and leisure, self-determination, sensory efficiency, and social interaction skills. So you can dig a little deeper if you're not familiar with the ECC and learn a little bit more. Some of you may be more well-versed or writing IEP goals for the ECC already, for that matter. I will click here. I've got the link right here for you to jump right into APH, what they share for their ECC areas. So let's say we talked about social interaction and communication modes, and you will jump right to a page that starts to talk about products. For example, there's a deafblind pocket communicator. It's a small raised letter with Braille communicator that is an APH product. there's a kit called SAM, which is Symbols and Meaning, and it allows students to learn about real objects and understand concepts like relational concepts. There are things like read-write stands, which is an angled tilt board that students could use either when they're reading to elevate the print and reduce some overhead glare if it's a student with low vision. Sometimes they may write so that the print is closer to them. So you will see assistive technology devices. Some of the ones that these are our what I call capital equipment loans for semester loans. So there's an item called a Mat Connect, which is a magnifier and a tablet. Together, it gives the student some distance viewing options. There's a handheld video magnifier and a larger Jupiter portable magnifier. So you can scroll on this link and learn more about some of the products that APH has available for expanded core curriculum. You will probably have to spend quite a bit of time, more than you might think, really looking through either a catalog or their online catalog to really see just how many products are available. So you may want to take a little time there. But what is very cool and is newer is a new virtual platform for learning, for free e-learning. I bolded the word free there. It's called the APH Hive. It allows you the opportunity for professional development right in the comfort of your own home, your office. It's perfect for busy educators and families that you're serving. So essentially, coursework is added, and ACVREP, these are credit hours that some vision professionals need to renew their licenses. Credit hours are available and they are free for most courses. I don't think I've seen a course that isn't free, at least until now. But even as an administrator or a teacher or a service coordinator, the Hive can be actually the perfect training opportunity for your staff. It is free to sign up and register for the Hive. I'm just going to click the Hive link. I've given you every quick link to just go right where you need to. As my Hive page loads, you'll see it says, welcome Dawn Soto, because I'm already registered and have taken many of the Hive courses. But the courses can be taken by parents, the students themselves, other IEP team members. In many cases, I've heard success with families, teachers of the blind, and other IEP team members taking the same Hive course and then coming back together to talk through how that could be applied in a student's IEP. And it's free. So that was a lot also. Any questions? All right, then I'm almost done. So I've given a link also to tips for teaching tactile learning through APH. And really tactile learning is something that we're really embracing. Even our Braille specialist has been providing more advanced programs for tactile graphics. I've also linked here for you 2D and 3D graphics library, where some files are available for free. You can register for the tactile graphics image library for free and download something that you might emboss on a Braille embosser. You might be able to print with a 3D printer. And so I don't think there's a Hive course about the tactile graphics library, but you'll want to take a little bit of time to explore that library to see everything that's available for you. So any questions?
Not in chat.
Awesome. Then I am just about done. What I did want to share, and I realize I could probably talk forever. Many of you who know me well know that. I've given a few links for you here as well. And there's one called Keep the Promise, and to help students meet education standards in their state. So if you're a teacher of the blind and visually impaired and want to help your district or LEA or director really understand the costs for education for a student who is blind and visually impaired who might need Braille, tactile graphics, any technology adaptations. This is one of my favorite graphics. And well, it is, I believe this should be accessible. It's from the APH page. It gives an example of learning tools for a student in a 10th grade physics class. And the tools are writing and printing equipment, a physics textbook, calculator, portable technology aids, and laptop. So the total cost for a 10th grade student who is sighted is approximately $1,583. However, for a student who is blind, including the 38 Braille volumes of the physics textbook, which here is $26,400, everything that's needed for that student, including laptop with screen reader software, tablet with refreshable Braille display, graphing calculator with speech, the 38 volumes of that textbook, a Braille writer, Braille paper, Braille embosser, tractor feed, Braille paper, all of those things would total $36,183. And this is for one student. So you can see that if I am allocated $400 per student, you can quickly see how costs associated with one eligible student in 10th grade. This is really largely why we have a loan program for those higher cost items like assistive technology, at least at this point. It's also why we would like you to send back any materials that aren't being used or even textbooks that are still in good order to go on our shelves. So I think it's an important graphic to share and is pretty impactful. Many of our TVIs have shared that with their directors. Additionally, I linked state education standards. I linked that it is an early preschool conference, right? So I linked the Wisconsin Model Early Learning Standards. So a teacher of the blind then would be adapting to ensure full access for their child or student who is blind or has low vision. So I'm going to go directly to one example for you in the standards, and you don't have to go along with me necessarily. I will talk it through for you. And having been in early childhood before blindness education, this really it impacts me to make sure that you all can understand how some of the tools APH might have can impact the learning to support students in classes. So for example, one of the developmental continuum standards would be that a student would perform simple fine motor skills or tasks, manipulating smaller objects with increasing control. What would we look for? We would look that the child could draw a line with a crayon or marker on drawing paper. Well, a child who's totally blind won't be doing that, correct? So APH has some tools. There's a tool called the Draftsman, which is a tactile kit where there's a film paper that can be put down on a rubber mat. We're going to talk more about tactile graphics today. And there are other ways that children can demonstrate utilizing tools, some from APH, some that we'll share with you today, to do something like a drawing, a simple drawing, make a picture of some sort. So I just wanted to share that as an example. And then lastly, I've given you a list to the directory of the ex officio trustees, and again, the link to register for the APH Hive. So I'm a little past time today, but any questions right there before we go into our activity?
There isn't any in the chat right now.
All right. Well, I'm reaching.
You're very thorough.
I'm going to reach behind me. And hopefully you've unpacked your kit a little bit. Trisha and I had a lot of fun. This is one of our favorite things to do. You got a mouse pad that has a rubber background. Some of the tactile graphics kits they can be quite expensive, have large rubber mats and a bunch of different types of drawing tools. So Braille transcribers who are really great at creating tactile graphics will use some of these more advanced kits. But the tracing wheel that you can find in most fabric shops that we gave you here with your mat can also be used to create lines and graphics. So I'm not sure I'm gonna actually stop sharing for now, if that's okay. Well, actually, wait, I'm going to try to show you something and you can let me know if you can see it. We tried this before, but
I can see it. Can everybody else see what? Dawn, hold it up a little bit more. There you go.
okay.
I can't see anything. This is Kay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we might want to stop sharing your screen then.
Yeah.
Dawn.
Oh, okay, wait. Julie Piper said she can.
Okay.
Mm.
Well,
what-
I'll
I
describe
can see it in your little window, but it's not on the big screen.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's what I have to do. I have to stop sharing my screen first.
Can I mention really quick, there's a few staff members of the conference that came in today that didn't sign up for the session originally and are just coming to all the conferences. If you guys want the materials that were sent, please let me know. I have lots of bags left I can send to you after the session.
Now we've got it. Thank you. Well, as soon as I got the kit from Trisha, I couldn't help myself. I got out my mouse pad. I got out the tracing wheel. I got out a bold Sharpie. And along with that, like model early learning standards and understanding that a tracing wheel and this little Braille, basically Braille book that Trish had made for all of you with just blank pages. What I ended up doing was using my bold marker to make the outline of a body, a circle for a head, a circle that I bolded in for an oval, sorry, for the body, arms, straight lines making arms, 2 small ovals for shoes, little hand shapes for their hands. And what I was able to do was take the back through the paper. I could see the outline of what I had made, and I'm using my tracing wheel on my mouse pad or rubber mat surface, because you can't do this on a basic table. You will ruin your table, number one, and you won't get the bumps to pop up on the other side. So you go from behind the paper and you're just going to make an outline of what you have in Sharpie. That's why I use giant bold Sharpie markers. So what I essentially created was just a body, an image of a stick figure, basically, which is really how kids in early childhood start to understand their body in space, where their head is in relationship to their shoes. And then Trish is the expert for any support in understanding early concepts in, related to Braille and early literacy. So she guided me to put a star sticker that you guys got a bunch of foam stickers that are tactile. I put a star sticker above the head of the body, and I put a circle sticker below the body. So Trish, I'm going to hand it over to you. You can use any of what I just said, and thank you.
Yep. So basically you have the mouse pad, use the rubbery part of that, and you put that on the front of the page, and you do your tracing wheel behind the page. So you're kind of working backwards after you make your drawing. And you make it thick enough like Dawn did with the marker. And this activity is really just dipping our toes in the water, as Dawn said earlier, for the tactile graphics readiness class that we were having at the in-person session that you could also attend to virtually. So this is kind of the start of it. And it's a lot of what the TBIs start with. And if you can just imagine all of the concepts that you're working on the little ones with, or the directions, if you're orientation mobility, right, left, top, bottom, middle, north, south, east, west, behind, in front of, a lot of those concepts that are just incidental that are purposely put into the goals you can do so simply with just these simple tools. We have Trisha saying that she uses the sensational blackboard. I wish APH carried it. It is awesome. Nice.